What happened? Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Pam and Eli, and today we're going to be talking about my labor and delivery story. That's a long story. Puppy, I can see how you got into this world. You're so cute. Oh, yeah, so let's start on August 26th. He was born on August 27th, 2019. So let's start on August 26th. I was at work. At the time, I worked at Six Flags. So if you don't know, when you work at Six Flags, the employee parking lot is like 10 to 15 minutes where I worked. It depends where you are in the park. But it took me about 10 to 15 minutes to get to my car. And that's if I was parked in the front row. Most of the time I wasn't parked in the front row because I was always late. But when I was pregnant. Because pregnancy, having you be sleeping every last second, you can't. So that day, I had my boyfriend pick me up, thank God, because my back was killing me. So I went to work fine in the morning, like nothing was wrong, normal pregnancy stuff. Nothing was wrong besides like the normal pregnancy stuff. So I went to work, and like I want to say 3 to 2 hours before my shift ended, my back was hurting. It had been bothering me like all day. It wasn't hurting bad, but it was hurting to where it was annoying me because I was working, and I worked in the cashier booth, like the lead at the time. And at the time, I wasn't always on my feet because every chance I got, I sat down, but I was always running around. But this particular day, it's an actual cashier, and I was cashiering. My son is like flashing my eyes. An actual cashier. So I was cashiering, and I was the only cashier, so I couldn't just like leave my position and ask to go home. So I was like, I'm just gonna stick it out because it's my last day before I go on maternity leave. So that's what I did. I stuck it out, and my back was hurting, but not like hurting to where I thought I needed to go to the hospital. So moving on from that, somebody finally took over for me because my shift was ending, and I always worked 8-hour shifts. Like I was always scheduled to work 8 hours. So I was so happy my shift finally ended because my back had been hurting me. So I was like, oh, maybe if I lay down, I'll be okay. So my boyfriend picks me up. In the front of Six Flags, and he has an interview at Chili's. And I was like, okay, I'll just wait in the car because it was supposed to be really quick, but Chili's was lagging. They're like, oh yeah, just come in, do the application really quick. But that's not how it went down. How it went down was he was waiting forever just for the manager to give him the application, and then they ended up telling him to apply online. Anyways, so I was waiting in the car for like, I want to say an hour and a half. And my back at this point, it was hurting. Like every time I felt a pain, like I would go like that, and like I would be like, oh my God, just stop hurting. Like it was hurting to where like it was really bothering me now. In my head, I still didn't think I was in labor. I just like, I need to lay down. So I was like putting the chair in the car, like back to where I was laying down, but I was so uncomfortable. And I wasn't like telling my boyfriend. I just had told him my back was hurting, but like my back always hurt, like, but I didn't tell him like, oh, my back is really fucking hurting. So he knew my back was hurting, but not like, oh my God, like you should go to the hospital. So then we go home, and my back is still hurting. I'm still getting like pains here and there. They're not like close, but they're like maybe like every like 30 minutes, they're not close, but they keep coming. And I'm just ignoring it. I'm like, I just need to sleep. Like I've been working a lot. It's probably because I have been on my feet, and my back is finally like, you need rest. So then finally we get home, and I lay down, but all through the whole night, the pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And like, mind you, like, I don't really like talk to my mom, so I couldn't be like, Mom, and I didn't live with her. I lived with my boyfriend's aunt, so it's not like I could be like, oh Mom, like, should I go to hospital? And at the time I didn't even think anything of it. So I was like, it was hurting, and I kept telling my boyfriend, like, my back is really hurting. And he thought that was being annoying at the time, right? Like, later on he told me, like, you were annoying me last night. Like, he didn't tell me, like, you're annoying me, but like later on he was like, you were really annoying me last night. But it's because obviously I was having contractions and I didn't know. And I also know, like, there's Braxton Hicks. Like, I don't know how they feel. Well, obviously I do, but like, I didn't know the difference between Braxton Hicks and contractions, because I don't think I had Braxton Hicks. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So then I, like, all through the night, my back is hurting. I did not sleep at all that night because my back was hurting. Like, I couldn't sleep at all. And finally, like, I don't know, I want to see, like, 8:39, I tell him, I'm like, my back is really hurting. I don't know what I should do. He's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, call your mom. I don't know where his aunt was at the time. I don't know if she was at work. I think she was at work, so it's not like I can ask her. But I think she was at work. So I was like, call your mom. And so he called her, because I didn't know what to do. I was like, you should call her and tell her what we should do, because I didn't know what to do. And so he calls her and she's like, she's in fucking labor, stupid. And so we go pick up his mom. And mind you, where I live, they don't take Medi-Cal. Like, in Henry Mel, they don't take Medi-Cal. And I have Medi-Cal. So I had to go to the Valley. I don't know where it's at. I think it's in the Valley. A hospital in the Valley. So since I had to go to a hospital in the Valley, my boyfriend was like, let's just go to this one. Like, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna get a big ass hospital bill, because I know so many people who still are paying off their hospital bill. And I was like, no, I'm okay, I'm fine. Like, I can hang on until, like, we get to that hospital that we were originally gonna go to. And he was like, are you sure? And he kept telling me, are you sure? Like, you can handle it? Are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. Because they weren't, like, really close, but they were hurting. Like, every time I got them and, like, I flinched, like, he's like, are you sure? Like, he did not want to take me to the hospital. He wanted me to take me to Henry Mel. But even then, before, we were like, oh, I don't think it's gonna, like, I thought it was Braxton Hicks. I was like, I don't think that I'm gonna have the baby today. Like, they're not, like, they weren't, like, really intense, but they hurt a lot. Like, compared to, like, as they progressed, they weren't as bad as I was about to get. But they weren't really strong contractions. So, finally, we get to the hospital. Mind you, we have his mom, and it's him and his mom. And we didn't think we were gonna have Eli. Like, we kept saying, like, oh, he's not gonna come today. My baby, he's tired. He's not gonna come today. It's just a false alarm. And that's why I really wanted to go to the other hospital, because of the fact that if we were gonna have him, why am I gonna have a big ass hospital bill for not even having the baby Eli? And so I just kept saying, no, let's just go to Holy Cross. And so when we get to Holy Cross, like, we've never been there. We had planned to, because mind you, I just had gone maternity leave that day. August 27th was my first day of maternity leave. So we were gonna go that Thursday, because that's when my boyfriend had a day off. So we're gonna go to hospital tour that Thursday. And so we have never been there. And so and mind you, I was 36 weeks exactly. So I had told him, like, hey, like, where do we go? We didn't know where to go. So we kept asking everybody, and they just kept, like, oh, it's over there, this way and that way. So we got lost, but eventually we found it. And when I got there, they just had me sitting in this, I guess, waiting area until they had my room ready, because, like I said, like, I didn't think I was gonna have it. They didn't see me, like, well, they didn't really pay attention to if my contractions were bad. So they were just like, oh, how far along are you? And I was like, 36 weeks today. And they're like, okay. And so, like, they were getting my room ready, I think. So I was just waiting there. And at that time, I didn't really have contractions at all. Like, I had it, like, maybe 3 times while I was sitting there. And I was sitting there for, like, 30 to 45 minutes, I want to say. but it's because they were getting my room ready. And there was this other girl who thought she was in labor too. I don't know if she was because I didn't see her after. She was sitting there next to me too. And so finally I get to like the hospital. Like, it was not a labor delivery room, but it was just a regular hospital room where like you can hear other people. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna check how dilated you are, and if you're not dilated at all, we're gonna send you home. And they checked me, I wasn't dilated at all, and they're like, okay, we're gonna wait an hour, and if you dilated, then we're gonna keep you. If you're not dilated, then we're gonna send you home. And I was like, okay, and that's what I figured. I thought I was gonna go home. And then an hour later, they said I'm 3 centimeters dilated. So they're like, oh shit, you are having a baby today. They're like, I didn't think you were gonna have a baby. Like, everybody kept telling me, like all the nurses and the doctors, they're like, I didn't think you were gonna have a baby today. Obviously I did, but like, they just kept telling me that, and I didn't think I was either. And then like when they checked, checked how many centimeters I was dilated the first time, let me put him there. I wasn't dilated, and his mom, because his mom was in the room with me, only one person could be out of the room with me, because it wasn't a labor and delivery room, it was like a room before you get that room. I don't know what that room's called, like if they check to see if they're gonna admit you. So I wasn't admitted yet. So she was in the room because only one person could be there at a time, and my boyfriend went to go park the car and everything, so she was with me, and he didn't know what to do, so she was with me, because like she obviously knew what to do. She had kids. Like, she grabbed my hand, and I didn't understand why she grabbed my hand. So when they checked you, it didn't hurt the first time, but eventually I understood why she grabbed my hand, because she told me it was gonna hurt, but it didn't hurt until later on. That shit fucking hurts, but it's because I wasn't dilated yet. So after they checked me an hour later, as I said, I was 2 meters long. When I first got to the hospital, I saw a doctor, and he told me that if I wasn't dilated after an hour, that he wasn't going to do anything to induce my labor, so that he was going to let him come naturally. But eventually he did break my water before I went to the delivery room. So they finally get me into a labor and delivery room, and when they check you, that shit hurts. So they kept checking me, and oh my god, like I would flinch and pull away, and I would be like, and it's so uncomfortable. Like I wasn't uncomfortable that his mom was there, because she's never seen me like that, but like, I don't know, like I've known her for so many years that I didn't really care that she was there. We never really talked about who was gonna be there, but like obviously she wanted to be there, and I didn't care if she wanted to be there. Like, I didn't mind it. So finally I get to the labor and delivery room, and I'm fucking crying because this shit hurts so bad. Like, I was crying so much because it hurt, and I didn't get the epidural because his mom said, oh, don't get the epidural at first because you'll have back problems. So she's like, ask them for the one that you get in your hand, and I don't know what it's called. So I asked them for the one in my hand, but it didn't change anything. The pain was still really, really bad. It was really intense. So eventually, when I was crying, my boyfriend didn't know what to do. He was like, what do I do? And he was just telling me, like, how do you expect to have another child if you can't handle this one? And I was just like, I haven't even popped out this one. So eventually I asked for the epidural, and by this time I'm already 8 centimeters dilated. 8 centimeters dilated. And a lot of people keep telling me, like, oh, I couldn't get it when I was 8 centimeters, like they wouldn't let me, but the doctor was like, the nurse was like, it's never too late. So when they gave me the epidural, they asked my boyfriend and his mom to step out because I guess nobody can be in the room, and they told them to come back 30 minutes. So they went to go eat, and they gave me the epidural, and I finally fell asleep because I hadn't slept all night. I had been up all morning because I was having contractions. So I finally fell asleep, and then when I finally fell asleep, the nurses come rushing in and wake me up, and they're like, turn on your side, and then I turned on one side, and they're like, turn on the other side, because I guess, and I had felt like numbness, like I just like kind of went numb, but I thought it was because I was falling asleep like everywhere, like I just felt numb, and I thought that was part of like the epidural, and it's because my oxygen level went down, so they had an oxygen mask on me up until I gave birth. So I had oxygen mask, and mind you, I was only 36 weeks, so my baby was premature. So after that, I was scared because they woke me up. I was asleep. They're like, turn on your side, turn on your side. And then they're like, turn on the other side, turn on the other side. Because I guess the baby, Eli, wasn't breathing right. Like his oxygen level went down. So they were just trying to get him to like turn. I think he was like doing something where it was like blocking him from breathing. So they just had me turn, and then he was fine. Like a second later, he was fine. But that really scared me. And my boyfriend and his mom were already in the room at the time. And he just got scared. He was like, what the fuck just happened? But it was fine after that. And then finally, I'm ready to push. And mind you, I came in the hospital at like 10:40 something, like around 10 till 11. I know I was there by 11 o'clock, but I got there after 10:30. So between that time frame, I got there. And I had him at 6:03, 6 something. I know it was like 6. It was before 6:15 p.m. And I got there at 10 something a.m. So my delivery was pretty quick, but by the time it was time to push, I was numb. Like I could not feel anything down me. Like I don't know what birth feels like because I was numb. So the doctor comes in and he's like, start pushing. But mind you, I was numb. He was like, push, push, push. Like, start pushing. And I was pushing what I thought was pushing, but since I was numb, I couldn't feel anything. He was like, since you're numb, it's going to be a little harder because you can't feel what you're doing. But then he told me to stop pushing because the nurses and anything weren't there yet. And then he was like, hurry up, tell them to hurry up. They're going to miss the birth. And so I had to wait. I was like, come on, I want to get this baby. Like, I want him to come out already. And then they told me to continue pushing and then push, 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 push. It was so hard to push because I didn't know if it was pushing or not because I was numb. And finally he came out and they put Eli on top of my belly. And he was just all like, covered in whatever the stuff is called. And then they had him on me, and then I'm pretty sure my boyfriend cut the umbilical cord, but I couldn't see because there were so many people. Like when you have a baby, there's like a lot of people in the room. Like I felt so uncomfortable every time a new person walked in because everybody was just seeing like my whole area down there. Like, and mind you, when you're pregnant, you cannot like reach down there, so it was not pretty. So I was just like I was so embarrassed. But anyways, by the time he was born, like they blocked when they went to go clean him. Like I only saw him for a second, and then they took him after the umbilical cord was cut, and they went to go clean him, so I couldn't see him. But I guess my boyfriend had told me that they almost like dropped him. Like one of the nurses was going too fast, and the other one was going slow, so they almost like dropped him onto the little incubator. But they were just making sure like he was okay because he was premature. But I couldn't see any of it because everybody was blocking it. Like, cause everybody like literally went straight over there and was blocking my view from where I could see the baby. So finally I had him, and oh my god, I was so happy because like when you're pregnant, it takes forever. Like pregnancy, everything takes forever. Like I was just like, I'm over being pregnant, and I don't know what 40 weeks or overdue feels like. So imagine the girls who go through it and get like be overdue, because my sister's a baby and she was overdue. Like she was overdue, and I don't know how she did that because I was so over being pregnant by the time I was 8 months, and that's how long I was pregnant for. 9 months. I was already over being pregnant by like 7 months because I worked full time, and I was always on my feet. I was on my feet up until maybe my 3rd trimester. Like I was still on my feet, but they would always accommodate me. Like if I was in a position where I had to stand the whole time, they would give me a stool, which is like good because like they wanted me to feel comfortable at work, which is really good because a lot of works don't care. And since I was a lead, I was there at 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I was always on my feet at the beginning of my pregnancy, but then they would ask me like, I noticed that you are tired, because I used to work at one location. I worked at 3 different locations, not once. Sometimes at once, but like not all at once. Like where I had to run 3 different locations at once. Most of the time you're only running 2, like you're double covering like once in a while, but that's usually when it's slow. Well, at least I did it when it was busy, but it wasn't like busy to where I couldn't handle it. So as a lead, sometimes that just happens. But so my feet were always swollen. Like my ankles were so fat, like they were like overlapping my shoes. But it's because I had to wear specific shoes. Like you have to wear white shoes, and they have to be sneakers, and there's not a lot like a comfortable. Like I think like I would want to live in sandals and slides when I'm pregnant, but I couldn't because I have to wear shoes. So my ankle would always swell. So I was so over being pregnant, but I was so happy that he was finally born. And then like everybody started coming to the hospital, and mind you, my baby was only 5 pounds. Like he was 5 pounds, and he was so small, but he was perfectly healthy. Nothing was wrong with him, and to this day nothing's wrong with him. He's a perfectly healthy baby, but he was so small, and he almost failed the car. He failed the car seat challenge one time because he was tiny, but then the second time he passed it. But he only failed it by like the last 5 minutes, so we had to do it all over again. But I was so scared to take him home, because when you're at the hospital, you have the help of nurses, doctors, like you have somebody literally around the clock 24/7. And when you leave the hospital, literally it's just you and whoever you have. At the time, me and my boyfriend decided to move the same week that my child was born. Like he was born August 27th, and we moved by September 1st. And mind you, I was working all the time, so on August 27th, I was like, I'm gonna start packing the day I go on maternity leave. That way we can get everything set up by the time Eli comes, because mind you, I had a month. I did not have a month. So we moved and everything the same week Eli was born, which was really stressful because after you have a baby, you're not allowed to carry anything heavy, and you're not allowed to move anything. You're not really allowed to do anything, and it's really annoying when people are like, "Stop! You're not allowed to do that." Like, I'm a really independent person, so I was trying to do everything myself. Like, I wasn't trying to like move dressers or anything. I was just trying to do like the basic stuff, you know. But like everybody was so like, sorry, my face is itchy. Everybody was like, "So you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that." And it was so irritating, like, cause I know my body, like I healed perfectly fine and shit. And I was walking around like literally like an hour, well, I don't know how long after, but I was walking around the same day after I gave Eli. Like I didn't feel any pain, like I didn't have stitches. I healed perfectly. Like I didn't have like anything, like I didn't feel like I just had a baby basically, like, and I still didn't until this day, because my body was fine. Like I don't know, I guess I have high pain tolerance, or I just didn't get stitches. I know if you get stitches, like it really hurts, and that's when you really feel the pain after. I didn't, thank God, and I didn't have a C-section, had natural birth, and I thank God for that, because I really didn't want a C-section, and I didn't want to get stitches because I heard it really stings. But yeah, that is my labor and delivery story. I hope you guys enjoyed my story, and if you want more story times, I have hella story times. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.